You've tuned into InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, a video podcast series. Our episode starts right now. Here's your host, Dominique Vale.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions, where you can check in for your dose of stigma-breaking, empowerment-filling, humor-loving life hacks and motivation tips for all of the medically adultish people in your life. I'm Dominique Vale, the founder of InvisiYouth and the host of the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions. And Happy New Year, Happy 2020, and welcome to what is now Season 3 of the InvisiYouth Chat Sessions. I'm so excited that we have the full green light to bring you a full Season 3 as of 2020, and that we're getting to start this out with a guest I'm super excited about. I've been talking with her since 2019, so we're excited to get her on the show and have you all get to meet her. So with the winter obviously being in full swing right now, something that many of us are thinking about, I know I am, is planning a holiday vacation or thinking about all the places we would want to go to avoid the cold that comes in the winter season. So there is no better special guest for us to bring on than somebody who has a job all about having insider secrets and best tips to make our traveling easier and more accessible. Especially when you have a chronic illness like myself or a disability, traveling can feel a bit daunting, or we're trying to figure out how we can have a fun and spontaneous traveling experience. So we can use all the advice that we can get, and I'm thrilled to have on the show Carrie-Ann Lightley, who is a disabled blogger and travel writer and the marketing manager for the online accessibility guide AccessAble. They're a virtual resource that gives so much detailed information about everything from hotels, restaurants, venues, and anything of your travel needs by having their trained surveyors talking about accessibility in all of these different outlets, which is so amazing. Combining her work experience with her love of traveling and living with cerebral palsy, Carrie-Ann really shows you all of the abilities of accessible travel and really showcases so much fun and that you can have in traveling with your friends and family, or even solo traveling as well. It has been something that's been such a big part of her work experience. She spent 13 years working as an information service manager for Tourism for All, and in 2018, she joined the AccessAble team as the marketing manager, and AccessAble is the UK's leading provider of accessibility information. Their website and app alone, seriously guys, just check it out because it's so user-friendly, and if I'm saying something's app user-friendly, you all know that that means very big deal. So even for our non-UK family that's listening, all my non-Brits that are watching as well, this is so amazing for you guys to see the different types of questions or ideas you can bring forward when you're planning your own traveling too. So I really am so excited because even Carrie-Ann's traveling blog that she has as well is so well written, so fantastic, and it really gives you such an insight into travel planning, destination reviews, and bringing spontaneity into our travel. And also, I always have to end with an accolade, Carrie-Ann is getting so much recognition that she deserves, where in 2019 she was named one of the top 100 most influential disabled people in the UK from the Shaw Trust Disability Power List 100. So everyone, welcome Carrie-Ann to the show. Hi Carrie-Ann, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm so excited. I was even telling some of my team, this is sort of the first episode where I'm feeling like a very curious guest because this is a major topic that I've always even wanted more insight on for myself. And even when I was in my teens and early 20s and wanting to travel with family and friends, it was something I kind of was shooting in the dark, trying to figure out my way to make it accessible and fun for me. So I'm really excited to get to feel like our listeners and our viewers and get to learn about all of the amazing knowledge that you have at the same time. So I'm really excited for this episode.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we're going to jump right in. I want everyone to get to know Carrie-Ann a little better, and we're going to play 5-Second Challenge.
5-second challenge. 5-second challenge.
Okay, 5-second challenge, pretty explanatory, everyone. It's our fun segment where we get to know our guests. I get to list out all different types of quick rapid-fire questions, and in 5 seconds, Carrie-Ann's going to ring out her favorite and top answer that she has. So, Carrie-Ann, are we prepared for a 5-second challenge?
I think so, yeah.
All right, what is something new that you want to try in 2020?
Something new that I want to try in 2020, I would say Oh my God, I've already gone over 5 seconds. I'm terrible at quick fire. Something, can it be something I want to try again?
Sure,
Can we
we'll
go
go.
with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was younger, I regularly did horse riding.
Ooh,
At
okay.
a Riding for the Disabled centre locally to where I live. And it's something that I haven't done for, oh my goodness, 20 years now. So I would just love to sort of push my comfort zone and see if that was something I could do again.
I love that. I wanted to make the pun about getting back on the horse. So that was
Yeah.
There it is. So,
Arguably the most difficult part, to be honest,
is getting on the horse.
When you're a wheelchair user, it's always, it's not very dignified, I will say.
I love that. Oh my God. If you had to speak another language, which one would you want to speak?
I would say probably Spanish, because I think that it has so many different applications in so many different countries, and I think it's quite a good base language to have.
Well, pienso que es una buena idea, which I think that's a good idea. So I can teach you some Spanish. There you go.
Thank you. There you go. I've learned something already.
What was your childhood dream job?
Honestly, I don't think I had one.
Okay.
I think I just, actually, I don't want to grow up and be an adult. I just want to continue, playing in the garden, building sandcastles, just living my best life, actually.
That is actually one of my favorite answers I've ever gotten on this question. Oh my God. That's going to now be the answer I give if somebody asks me what my childhood job would have been. Oh my God, I love that. Your bucket list top 3 countries you still want to travel to?
Australia,
Love.
which is hopefully happening this year. Thailand and Croatia.
Oh my, we could have the same travel trip right there then. So we could, I always say.
Should we go? Should we book it? Let's go.
Thailand is on my bucket list for years and everyone always looks going, that's a little bit random. So I'm so glad that's on yours.
Of course.
What would be sort of 2 activities that you want to try when you go on your next traveling trip? Things that you like to do?
Okay, so a couple of years ago at like a mobility roadshow where you can go and test out all different wheelchairs and things, I trialed a Segway wheelchair.
Oh my God, so cool.
Which was awesome. And so where you go to these places and they have Segway tours around the city or whatever, that's what I want. That's my dream, is a wheelchair Segway tour. I just think that would be an awesome way to see a new place.
My God, that needs to be vlogged 100% if when you get to do that. That needs to be a whole video attached to your vlog at the same time, because I need to see it.
There is a short video on my Instagram of me trying out this Segway wheelchair. So have a look. I was actually at Silverstone, the racetrack.
Okay.
And we sort of came out of the pit lane at Silverstone on the Segway wheelchair. It was awesome.
That is
so yeah, check that out.
Amazing.
And then the other one, because the last time I did it on a trip, it was like just the best day of my life. It was wine tasting.
That's always just that's fun all the time.
Fairly on brand for me. It was a trip to Madrid a couple of years ago, where we went into another town on the outskirts of the Madrid region, and we went wine tasting in this place that had been sort of built into the mountainside. It was almost like being in a cave. It was out of this world.
Oh my God. Awesome. I'm just like mentally envisioning that moment. Oh, there we go. That sounds so amazing.
I was like, I have found my spiritual home. Done.
I love that. If you had to pick your dream celebrity travel partner, who would you pick?
Yeah, so I don't know how well this is going to translate with your US viewers and listeners, but there's a guy called Adi Adepitan in the UK who Adi is a wheelchair user, and he actually has a travel program on the television where he sort of, he's been around Africa and all different places.
Awesome.
And he just has so much motivation just to go off and do it. And he's been to these places that aren't accessible, and he films himself falling out of his wheelchair and all sorts of stuff like that, and just gets on with it. And I think that would give me a bit of a push myself into get out of my comfort zone and do something a bit different, traveling with somebody like that.
I love that. No, that's really great. And then if you had to pick, what music would be on your go-to traveling playlist?
Yeah, so one of my top favourites is honestly anything by Florence and the Machine.
Oh, so good.
I'm just a major fan, and it always gives me quite a lot of sort of motivation, bit of a kick up the bum to get the day going.
It is. I love that. I love that. That's a perfect way to not only transition into our next segment, but then transition into what I love that we have at our InvisiYouth chat sessions is one of our amazing new charitable sponsors for season 3, who also is in the music brand themselves. We really want for this episode to really thank our charitable sponsor for this episode and their support of InvisiYouth charity. And for many of you, they may sound a little bit familiar, especially for our audio podcast listeners. We are talking about Brian Hansen of the alternative rock band Brian Hansen Band. He is located in New Jersey on the east coast of the states like myself, and Brian is a singer-songwriter, super fantastic, sort of Adam Levine vibes, but with like a definite funk rock edge to him. And his skills are really matched with the others in his band, from his guitarist William Blake and his drummer Quan Merritt. Also, they are really fantastic. And fun fact for everyone about our sponsor, Brian is the voice from our InvisiYouth chat sessions theme song and for all of our in-between segments. So you will definitely recognize his voice, why we love him so much as well. And his third album, their studio album, Gas Money, is now everywhere and available to get their music anywhere you get it. So from Apple Music, Spotify, and Amazon, even going on their website, which is brianhansenmusic.com. We're going to have all the links below. We're going to have his web link pop up as well, so you all can find Brian Hansen. And for all of you listening, you're going to get a wonderful set of ear candy for one of their songs. And for our YouTube viewers, which all of you should be definitely checking out, and shameless plug, make sure you subscribe and hit that thumbs up button for this episode. We are going to give you a short little moment of a clip from their new single, Smiling Dashboard Jesus.
Nickel in my pocket, gas tank burning low, smiling dashboard Jesus, singing that same old song. But I talked to God the other day, thanked him for my life despite the pain. The kids are grown and doing fine. Now could you turn this water into wine? La da 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 da, la da 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 da.
All right, seriously, that whole entire music video is really entertaining, so I'm going to tell everybody to definitely check out Brian Hansen Music on YouTube. Like I said, all the links are below, and we're very thankful again that Brian Hansen and the Brian Hansen Band are sponsors for InvisiYouth charity chat sessions. So quickly, we're segueing back into our next segment with Carrie-Ann called First Few Words.
First few words.
First few words, as many of you know, sometimes it's always those first few words that are very daunting for us, whether talking with family, friends, or people that we're just meeting out and about. Getting that ball rolling, especially on conversations with chronic illness or disability, can be a bit challenging, and so we want to make sure we can get you some of the best startup phrases or best scenario questions you can bring up. And in particular, talking today, bringing up questions that you guys can ask when it comes to traveling while having a chronic illness or disability. So, Carrie-Ann, what would you feel like some of the top questions somebody should ask themselves when picking a holiday destination or a vacation for themselves?
I think that, you know, when you have an illness or a disability, the first question is always going to be, is it accessible to me?
Yeah.
And that's really important. You know, there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
So you really have to think about your own needs and requirements when you're researching the accessible elements of any trip or travels. But I think, you know, almost just as important, if not more important, is actually, where do I want to go? And what do I want to do? I think it's so easy to get bogged down in, well, I need to go somewhere accessible, so I need to find somewhere accessible, and that just being the whole scope of your search. Mm-hmm. And actually, you know, remember that this is a holiday, and holidays are fun, and this is supposed to be something that you're going to really enjoy. So I just think it's so important to ask yourself those questions, as well as obviously the very important accessibility question.
Yeah, I like that you said that too, because even through all of my years with family going on trips or with friends going on weekend trips, it always was the sort of two different polar opinions where everyone would say you should be checking 100% medically what you need if anywhere is available to you, or everyone else saying look up what you want to do and what you're excited to see and then see if any of it's accessible for you. And it was always those two, and I never knew which one to do, which one was more important. So I do like how you phrased it as well, as obviously you want to do something that's going to be fun for you, but then be able to look at it from a realistic lens as well and see what really medically or from a disability standpoint you really need for it to be accessible for you.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. But, you know, from my own personal point of view, it would always be, my first question would always be, right, where do I actually want to go?
Exactly. I love that. What about what questions should you ask or even look into when you're sort of looking online to check about a hotel or a venue or a restaurant if they're accessible?
I think, again, you know, that's really personal.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would be looking at, is there level access to get through the door?
Mm-hmm.
And is there an accessible toilet?
Okay.
Would be my two top questions for me.
Okay.
And sometimes, like, is it dog friendly? Because my dog isn't an assistance dog.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if we're going out for a Sunday afternoon walk and we want to go for something to eat or whatever. So it's not always an access requirement. Sometimes it's a life requirement as well. But I think, you know, whatever your personal questions are, make sure that they're being answered by a trusted source.
Yeah.
I think, you know, finding reliable information can be really tricky. And I know that you mentioned a little bit in the intro about what AccessAble does.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to sort of drill down on that, you know, that we have the website, accessable.co.uk. There's detailed access guides to tens of thousands of places across the UK, containing thousands of pieces of information for each place, for each venue. And so that's when it's really, you know, you have to drill down and look at what in that information is going to be important for you to find an accessible place.
Yeah.
You know, it may not all be relevant to anybody, but there will be two or three, say, key pieces of information in that access guide that will make a huge difference to me.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and the reliability factor comes from the fact that every single venue has been visited in person by an AccessAble trained surveyor.
Yeah, which is key. Yeah.
And the information that they collect is purely factual. So it's not a review, it's not opinion based. It's not about saying access here is good or access here is bad. Yeah. It's about saying, you know, this is how wide the doorway is. This is how bright the lighting levels are. This is the fixtures and fittings in the accessible toilet, etc. So I think it's about thinking about what questions you have to ask for your own illness or disability, and then finding the best, most reliable source to be able to answer those questions.
I like that, yeah. And what about with, obviously, like you had mentioned, if you're traveling with family members or friends, if you're trying to if they want to ask questions about how they can be supportive of you while on your vacation with them, what kind of questions would you suggest to our family and friend support network if they're trying to figure out what they should do to help?
I think there's one question, really, and I think that's, how can I help you? What do you need?
I like it. Basic, simple. We're done. Next question.
I think it's really simple. I think it's really straightforward. And, you know, from my point of view, the people close to me know me well enough to know that if I need help, I will ask for it. Yeah. But I know that that's not the same for everybody. Yeah. But again, it's so individualised, and it is just actually just ask me what I need, and I'll tell you.
Exactly. And I think even as well, I know for me, definitely something I had learned with my family as I was dealing with my chronic illness and traveling was us having sort of those conversations before we went on the vacation of if I needed a rest day or if I needed medications on me or being able to sit down, having those not in the heat of the moment under pressure where you're trying to walk in the door of a tour or a restaurant and all of a sudden nobody knew how to help me. It was kind of having those talks beforehand so it's not under pressure where everyone might be a little more anxious to get a resolution quickly.
Yeah, 100%.
And then what about, I know something that a lot of our young adults and our teens and those that are in their 20s as well mention is when they're in a hotel setting or in a resort setting or vacation and they have to ask questions to the staff about things that they need. How do they approach staff members with things that they might need for their health or for accessibility? What would be your suggestions for those that might be a little more nervous to do that?
Yeah, I think it's the way that you think about it before you ask the question. And I think actually, staff assisting somebody with an illness or a disability and giving them support or adaptations for that, it's just actually good customer service.
Yeah.
All customers are just customers.
Yeah.
I've heard over the years this phrase bandied around where there's actually no such thing as disabled customers because we're all just customers.
Yeah.
And it's about tailoring and treating everyone individually and supporting and helping what they need. And I think actually if you think about it in that way, then any good staff member will want to support you, no matter what your needs are. Sometimes it might be a bit more of an awkward conversation, but I would just say, think about it in that way. Think about it as it is just good customer service. You're helping them to do their job better, actually, and ask direct questions that meet your needs individually, because often I think the staff member might be just as nervous because they're thinking, how do I help this person? I really want to help them, but I don't know how, and I don't want to do or say something that might cause offence or make things awkward. Yeah. So I think, again, it's just being really clear about what it is that they can do to support you.
Yeah.
And how they might be able to help.
Yeah, I know a big thing that worked for myself as well was, like you said, I love that you phrased it that there is no real difference between types of customers. It's just everyone is a customer, especially in a traveling setting. Everyone has different needs that they would ask. Ours are just a little more medically influenced than others. And I think a big thing that was really helpful for me was allowing the staff members to have an option for them to sort of breathe with the information I needed or a question I had, that they could always they could take my phone number or my email and someone could call me back, so that, like you said as well, it could be a nerve-wracking moment for a staff member that you are being direct and you're asking for what you need, but that particular person you asked does not know right away what the right answer is. So giving them an outlet of, hey, I can give you my phone number. Could you speak to your manager or a colleague and get back to me in a couple hours? What would be best? So that they also then can give you the best information that they can then provide.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a really good tip.
I like that. Yeah, no, definitely. And even kind of going off of this segment as well, before we switch off into speaking of fun vacations, we're going to have my fun interim segment with Carrie-Ann, where she gets to tell me a story. But before we get to that fun part, I want to always thank you guys for listening or watching the InvisiYouth chat sessions. Like I said, this is part of our virtual resources at InvisiYouth charity that we get to provide. And it's our, very much like I always tell everyone, this is our fun, entertaining education that we're able to give all of you. So all of our links are going to be below so that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to all of our podcast channels, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, all of the above, being able to definitely support our network that we're on and support our show, and also our donations obviously are so thankful for us because it helps us being able to provide this video podcast series, provide our resources, our events, our leadership programming. So all of that's linked below, and we're super thankful, like we said, for just that super quick moment of just hitting a subscribe button. Really does help us out more than you can know. So we want to thank you for being able to support the InvisiYouth chat sessions in that way. We're really thankful for that. And now that we got our first half of the show underway, we're going to go into our intermission segment where Carrie-Ann is going to tell me a story. This is So That One Time.
So that one time.
All right, with So That One Time, this is everyone's favorite part, especially mine, because it's where I get to sit back in this nice, comfy velvet chair, relax, drink some water, and have Carrie-Ann tell me a story. So, Carrie-Ann, the mic is yours.
Okay. So, this story is probably more on the funny side.
I love a funny story.
It's certainly funny looking back on it. I might not have been laughing at the time. So, it was back in 2014, and I had travelled with my husband to Barcelona for the first time. It was the first time I'd ever had a European city break, the first time I'd ever had a city break outside of the UK. I'd just never really travelled in that way before, and I loved it. I was like, this is travel for me. This is, you know, getting involved in city life, living like a local, discovering new places. Massively helps that Barcelona is one of the most accessible places I've ever been to. There is a full guide on my blog if you'd like to have a look. But it's, you know, I was just in love with this place, in love with this lifestyle. I'm like, I can see myself living here. I'm just, you know, can I just actually spend the next year travelling around Europe, please? Thank you. And so the reason that we travelled there in particular was because it was our wedding anniversary.
Nice.
So we have this little pact on our wedding anniversary where we don't buy gifts or anything like that. We go to somewhere new. We go to a new place and we spend time together. And that might be, you know, somewhere close to home. It might be somewhere overseas. Whatever suits our life circumstances at the time, really. Mm-hmm. So it was our wedding anniversary. We were, you know, just so happy to be where we were, absolutely loving it. Walking down the promenade next to Barceloneta Beach. I was in my manual wheelchair and my husband Darren was pushing me. We're sort of walking along and I'm just so happy. And then Darren pushes me into a lamppost.
Oh my God, no.
And I'm like, what is going on?
Oh no.
Like, thankfully my foot plates of my wheelchair stick out enough that I didn't face plant the lamppost.
Oh.
But, you know, I have cerebral palsy, so I have a pronounced startle reflex. So when things like that happen that I'm not quite expecting, it's not the most comfortable. Now, Darren initially told me that he'd been busy looking at the ocean, sort of in this direction. Lamp is here, which is why we crashed into it. It actually turns out that he'd been busy checking out somebody on the beach on our wedding anniversary.
Oh no! Oh.
And so that was the reason why we'd crashed into a lamppost. I mean, all I can say is he needs to be thankful for those foot plates, because had I ended up with a black eye or a broken nose, you know, we might not have stayed married quite so long.
Oh, props to your husband for getting to the second real answer of why the lamppost ended up being in your face. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And props to your wheelchair for breaking your impact as well.
Absolutely.
Oh
There's
God.
a benefit to all these things.
Oh my God, I'm loving that's just sort of like it's like a Friends episode, so we get to start it out. So that one time with the one episode with the lamppost, definitely. Yep. Oh my God. I'm trying to think of a way to segment out of this to the next one, and I wouldn't know how to segment. Oh, man. So we're just going to segue out of this segment because my journalism background does not know where to go from this one. So we're going to go into our next segment with Carrie-Ann, which is called one of our new segments that we brought in last season called Top Search.
Top Search.
You got the top search.
With segment Top Search, often we always say that people will suggest when you're in the chronic illness and disability community to Google when you have questions about health or disability. And while sometimes Google is a great tool, other times it can lead to some misinformation, some funny answers, and things that can make us laugh or get frustrated. So this segment of ours is obviously inspired by the Wired's Google Most Searched videos that they have on YouTube channel. So shout out to Wired for the amazing idea of this show, of this segment. And we get to look at all different phrases or all different types of top questions that would be in a search bar. And we have Carrie-Ann and myself getting to autofill what our answers would be. So, Carrie-Ann, what do you think would be the top searched phrases to use when you are trying to look for a holiday or vacation that could be accessible?
So I'm basing this on sort of my knowledge of searching for this information over the years, both for myself and for when I worked for Tourism for All and ran the helpline there. I mean, disabled access and then your destination name is pretty much the top sort of bog standard one that will bring up something.
Mm-hmm.
In the UK, accessibility guide is another sort of useful one. So obviously AccessAble produced access guides. Some venues produced their own accessibility guides, which you can download from websites. So it means that you're able to find sort of a deeper level of information. And then a term that I absolutely hate, because it actually doesn't mean anything when you think about it logically, but it does work quite well in Google searches. It's wheelchair friendly.
That is such a weird phrase now that you said that.
I just don't like it. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, for one, you know, wheelchair users are all different. Wheelchairs are all different, and you can't just be friendly to every single one of them. You know, you can't just be accessible to every single one of them. But yeah, does that mean, are you just going to like give out hugs to wheelchair users? Is that being wheelchair friendly? Like, I don't know.
I love that. What makes a wheelchair actually friendly? And that's what...
Who knows?
Oh my God. I like that. And one thing that was definitely a fun tip that a friend of mine gave, because in a different point on my end with having a chronic illness, a lot of times accessibility isn't sort of, as you say, sort of the standards of what I would need. A lot of times it is sort of, it's helpful for me to know where hospitals might be in proximity, especially if you're in the show we film in New York City, and naturally, obviously, there's lots of hospitals here, but there's a lot of traffic as well. Getting from point A to point B, if I went into one of my cardiac episodes and I needed to go to a hospital, could be a tiny bit challenging in New York City. So it is definitely on my end. A friend of mine had suggested getting reacquainted with the advanced search option on Google, which I remember learning in high school or secondary schooling for our UK and Australian youth that get to listen to the show, was definitely learning advanced searching and how wanting different words to pop up in articles or on websites instead of just sort of the blanket phrases that I was typing into Google and not really getting anywhere in terms of that. That was a big sort of suggestion for me that became very helpful. One thing that I actually was going to ask you was, I had a lot of friends mention to me over the years to use a Reddit to figure out if certain locations were going to be friendly to me. And I was like, I'm going to ask the expert here. What do you think about that, Carrie-Ann?
That confuses me, to be honest. I wouldn't personally recommend that as a life strategy. Like, no, I just don't see Reddit as being the place to get this sort of reliable information.
Exactly. I think the one thing I always wondered was trying to, when a lot of times, as you might know, especially with AccessAble as well, is people, you have such trained surveyors that are there and giving information, but then a lot of times other people might just sort of go onto comment boards and talk about vacations or venues. And a lot of times, if you had a wonderful experience, you might not be taking the extra 5 minutes to write a 5-star review. If you had a horrible time, you probably are going to take the time to write a 1-star review over something. So it was trying to gauge that.
I think the thing is as well that, you know, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about our surveyors are there to collect factual information. Yeah. And, you know, often on other platforms with like crowdsourced information, it's actually opinion based, or it's based on that individual's experience, which is based on their individual access requirements, you know, and even just the differences between you and I and what we need in a hotel or something like that. You know, when you think about that in the spectrum of all the different health conditions out there, all the different impairments and disabilities out there, I think, you know, it is, it's tricky. I think it can help to know that, you know, somebody with my condition or somebody who also uses a wheelchair has been to this place and had a good time, but I'm not going to book it based on that. I'm going to do some more research.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even kind of going back to with AccessAble, what are some of your favorite elements of the app or of the website that you hear a lot when people use AccessAble for finding hotels or restaurants and seeing their accessibility? What are some of the things you hear are the favorite things that people will use it for?
I think, it's just generally having that level of detailed information. I mean, 98% of people that we surveyed tell us they look for accessibility information before they go somewhere.
Amazing.
And another 98% figure was 98% people more likely to visit a venue that has access information, and 76% would not visit a place if it did not have access information.
Wow.
I think that's so powerful just as like a headline figure.
Yeah.
But things about the sort of the features of AccessAble which might not be quite immediately obvious, or so obviously we have the website. We have accessable.co.uk, which has all of the detailed access guides on. We also have a free app on iOS and Android that anybody can download, and the difference there is it gives you this information in your pocket.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily spending days sat at a computer researching and trawling the internet. Actually, if you just arrive in a new city and you want to find somewhere accessible to go for dinner, you can be a bit more spontaneous.
Yeah.
You can try and pull that element out. I think, life as a disabled person or as a person with an illness is severely lacking in spontaneity.
Yes.
We have to plan everything.
Yes.
We have to think about every move we're going to make. We have to plan everything. And I've always wondered, is that just part of my personality, or is it because I'm disabled? And I don't really know the answer to that, because I guess one feeds the other, I suppose. But to have the option to be more spontaneous is wonderful.
Yeah, no, I really, really love that you said that as well. I know that's something that we spoke about before, and I know even on my end it is, I always will wonder, was I always a little more calculated in my travel plans or picking out vacations or weekend trips, or is it because I do have the back of my subconscious worry about what if a flare-up happens, what if this happens, I want to be prepared. So yeah, like you said, adding that element back into people's control, into their grasp of being able to have some sort of spontaneity in their traveling is really a key asset to what you get to do with AccessAble and what they're able to provide.
Definitely.
And kind of even going in a different direction too, obviously, when you're traveling, whether it's sort of weekend trips or long vacations or holidays on that way, you end up using sort of public transportation, airplanes, or driving in a car. So what are some sort of the top searched ideas you would come up with in terms of finding avenues of accessibility in the actual element of traveling when you are taking a holiday?
Okay, so sort of weighing up whether or not I would go in a car or I would use the local transport, that sort of thing.
Yeah, trying to figure out when you're looking into those options, how do you figure those out?
So I guess my first port of call would be, have a look at what alternative transport options are that aren't a car, and see how manageable that is for me and how accessible it is for me. So I would Google, the local transport operator or whatever, or I'd have a look at the train journey between. And then if all of that wasn't manageable or wasn't suitable, that would probably be the deciding factor to take a car for me. So, for example, where I live, I'm in the countryside, in the Lake District, in the north of England, and public transport, there is some accessible public transport, but there's just not a lot of public transport at all for anybody. So you have to have a car to be able to experience where we live properly. So I guess that's how I would work it out. I'd sort of have a look and see what was available and accessible to me first of all, and if I found that was lacking, then we'd probably decide to go by car.
Okay, yeah, and then even this is sort of leaning into your travel blogging experience, but I know for us working with young adults, a big thing for them is using their social media to see about vacation destinations of where they like to go. So what are sort of things that have been sort of top searched that you've used on Instagram or Twitter, or sort of the hashtags that you might click on to see about different venues or destinations or hotels and their accessibility?
So in terms of sort of using social media, I might just put a question out to my followers and be like, has anybody been here actually, and just gain some knowledge that way. The other thing is groups on Facebook. There's a group on Facebook called AccessAble Travel Club, which I think has about 10,000 members now. And it was set up by somebody in the UK, but now has quite a big sort of international spread of members.
Yeah.
So you tend to find when somebody's saying, oh, I want to go to this place, there's either somebody that lives there or there's somebody that's travelled there before who can say, well, I stayed in this hotel, and, that'll give you a starting point. Mm-hmm. And I think, that is, I'm slightly contradicting myself now, because that is then going back to other people's personal experiences. But, whereas I would always use something like AccessAble in the UK, sadly at the moment there is no worldwide standard for accessibility information. So if I'm going to a different country that I know nothing about, then as a starting point, I need somebody who does know about it.
Yeah, no, definitely on that end. And yeah, that kind of even, that sort of perfectly segues into our last segment, which I'm really excited to have Carrie-Ann on, because I will be taking some many notes with this last segment of the show. And this is Medically Adultish Guidebook.
Medically Adultish Guidebook.
With the Medically Adultish Guidebook, so often, especially for young adults or as we trademark our medically adultish community, with any sort of chronic illness or disability, it's always trying to figure out that sort of the blend of being a young person, but also being in your own as an adult, and trying to figure out what are the best sort of tips and advice that you can get for being a young adult with a chronic illness or disability. So we end up building, with this guidebook of segments, the guidebook of being able to do traveling with a chronic illness or disability for all different aspects of it. So for all of you, I would say take out a pen or paper, or for all of my tech-savvy listeners and viewers, take out the note app on your phone, and take some notes from talking with Carrie-Ann on this, because you really want to. So I know a big thing I wanted to talk to Carrie-Ann about that I've gotten loads of times over the last 4+ years with InvisiYouth charity is sort of the top piece of advice, or the top tip that we would give for the different levels of travel, whether that's sort of a day trip, a weekend trip, or a long-standing holiday. So I wanted to ask Carrie-Ann what her sort of top tip would be for each level of travel for her.
Okay, so I've had to think about this. To be honest, they're all around a kind of similar theme. But I think it's probably the most important, given my experience and the places that I've travelled to and the things that I've done. This is what I keep coming back to remind myself of. And I figure if it's advice I'm giving to myself, then hopefully it'll be helpful for other people as well. So I think, for a day trip, just be realistic. Don't try and pack too much in. Figure out what you want to see. Then you might need to half that list. You'll definitely need to take some things off that list. Yeah. But just don't do too much. Don't try and pack too much in one day. If it's then becoming unmanageable, extend your trip. Have a weekend stay or something like that. But I think as how we are today, especially with social media and things like that, there is a tendency that you just want to go everywhere. You want to do everything. You want to see everything. You want to take photographs of it all. You want to put it on Instagram. You want to say, I went there today and I saw this and that and this and that and this. But are you actually enjoying that? Yeah. Did you actually have a nice time? And do you now feel awful as a result of that? Health-wise, are you now going to have to spend a week in bed because you've spent a day, just running around everywhere that you can possibly find in this new city? Yeah. Just to stick it all on social media. Yeah. So, you can tell I've got my blogger's hat on at the moment. So I think, we spoke earlier about, when you're planning a trip, think about what's accessible to you, but also think about what you want to do. Yeah. And I think that comes into play here as well. It's thinking about what you want to go and do and see, but thinking about it within the limitations of your own condition.
Yeah, and I think like you even said, it hit it right on the nail on the head for me too, was whether it was a day trip, weekend, or a longer trip, it was sort of being not so responsible, but you are in a way responsible for your health and sort of your physical well-being. So knowing that if you really know from location, this is the only day in our weekend trip that I'm going to be able to see these things I really would love to see, you might know that maybe call it an early night, or you're going to need to sort of recuperate that night to go into the next day and actually do something the next day of your weekend trip. Absolutely. Or even on a long one.
I mean, what I've learned more recently on blog trips when they've been weekend trips is that, I like to explore. If I've travelled for a couple of hours to get to a new place, I want to see something of that place.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoy just chilling in my holiday cottage, relaxing in my hotel room, having a dip in the pool or whatever. And I think it's about, again, not trying to experience everything and making sure that you take some time to just enjoy the surroundings of the place that you're staying in. Because, more often than not, you've paid enough money to be able to stay there. You've invested, and so you should enjoy that as well as enjoying the exploring and the traveling around.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what would be sort of your guidebook tips of efficiently packing for trips, especially when you have a chronic illness or disability?
Like, this is really difficult because I'm not very good. I'm not very good at packing. I hate packing. And I'm not very good at efficiently packing at all. So I think, it does depend on you as a person and what you need. I guess my top tip would be, familiarise yourself with what is available locally, with what you can get from the pharmacy, with what the hotel can supply or whatever. Can I pick up some stuff when I'm there? Mm-hmm. Meaning that I don't have to take 5 bags and I can just take 1.
Yeah.
And I guess that's as much of a tip as I can give there because I'm a terrible packer.
Then we need to have you watch some Marie Kondo and she can spark some joy in how you would roll and pack and everything. I know a big thing for me as well. I joke that I'm raised full Italian and my mom is also a nurse, so we're very efficient when it came to, even as a kid, my sister and I would always learn how to efficiently fold things so it wasn't wrinkled and you took up equal space. So as we've gotten older and now I'm 26, we still have that efficient suitcase packing. But as I've dealt with my chronic illnesses and now have to carry more things with me that end up taking a few more extra slots there that I'm not getting to bring an extra pair of shoes that I would want, I now need to carry medical pieces of things with me. It's definitely, I used a phrase once where it was what I had my essentials bag versus my travel bag. So my essentials were what had to be on my person. That worst case scenario, I needed a medication for my heart, or I needed to have that Tylenol to help me out with a migraine or other things on me. That's my essentials. They're on my carry-on version. And then my travel bag was sort of what I could use for the time that I'm there, sort of the experience, that me coming home thing that I would need. So it was sort of that what supports you versus what sustains you kind of mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always going to have a bit of a trade-off, really, aren't you, when it comes to luggage space? It's like, I really want to take that, but do I need 3 pairs of shoes? Probably not. Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, when I travel for work, I travel on my own and with my manual wheelchair, so I can only take what can fit comfortably on the back of my chair in a bag. Mm-hmm. And then I pack quite well because I'm really restricted. So
that's what we need.
So
we need to restrict you.
No choice.
You just get the suitcase opened up empty and it goes, Carrie-Ann, this is all you're allowed to take with us on this 1 week.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about kind of going back? I know something you mentioned as well that you really love to bring out when you talk in your travel blogging, as well as us sort of talking today, was getting to bring that spontaneity back to travel for people with a chronic illness or disability. So what would be tips of yours that you've learned over the years or people have told you that have been helpful for you to feel like you're doing things spontaneously on a trip?
Yeah, I think, again, it's something that I find really difficult. Yeah. And not just because I am disabled, but just because I'm probably a bit of a control freak, actually. I'm not very good at spur of the moment. So I think, utilise the technology and the aids that are available to help you to do that. And I guess sometimes you're just going to have to push out of your comfort zone. You're just going to have to take a leap of faith. And more often than not, it will work out. And if it doesn't, if you end up somewhere horribly inaccessible or whatever, there is usually a workaround. There is usually something that can be done. I mean, I'm supposed to be an expert at this, and it hasn't been that long since I arrived at a hotel in Italy that told me they had an accessible room that was completely inaccessible.
Oh no.
And I just spent 12 hours like beating myself up, like, this is my job, how could I have got this so wrong? But actually, we found a workaround. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't ideal, but we found ways around it. So I think, I guess my top spontaneity tip would be just try and push through your comfort zone a bit. Try and do something that scares you. Why not?
Yeah, and like you even said too, it doesn't have to be a lot of, especially with working with young adults, if the entire trip has to have planning in it, they feel that all of the fun or all the spontaneity is taken out of it. Where, like you had pointed out, finding moments that you can be spontaneous within a planned, more orchestrated trip still gets to bring that element of fun to a vacation you would have.
Definitely. Like, I've been on like press trips before where the itinerary has been like really solid 12-hour days, no room for free time or whatever. But, you get the odd half an hour here and there and just go and find a beautiful view, or, go and do some shopping and find some souvenirs that you totally weren't expecting. And so I think it's sort of grabbing that time where you can get it. And leaving enough flexibility in your itinerary at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was definitely what I was going to ask as well, sort of what your tip would be for people who do want to plan aspects or do within a holiday have guided tours or do different things or go to different destinations on a vacation. What would be sort of your tips in terms of planning activities within a holiday?
I think based on personal experience, is just leave enough time for things to go wrong. Leave enough time for things to be flexible. This same trip to Italy, I mean, it was doomed. It was doomed, clearly. The flight was delayed and we were only going for 3 nights. And I had, being a planner, being a control freak, I'd been like, right, we're going to go here and we're going to go there and we're going to go here and we're going to go there. And because the flight was delayed, we had to miss out on one of the places that we'd really wanted to go to. Mm-hmm. But if I'd added an extra night on, that wouldn't have been a problem. Mm-hmm. And we'd have had some time to rest and chill out. So again, I would have been following my own advice. We learn from experience, don't we? So I think, my top tip there is to allow time for things to go wrong.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a key point.
They can go wrong for everybody, disability, illness or not. And if you've left time for it, then you're not going to blame yourself when you have to miss out on something.
Yeah, and even like you said as well, I know that's very similar to me, is that if we had to miss out on something and it was because of my health, I always then felt very bad for my family or friends that I was traveling with, and you would feel sort of a guilt in a way that you were moving around a trip that they had. So a big thing that I ended up that was sort of helpful was if we had planned activities that we were sort of highlights, top 5 we wanted to do on a trip, it was always finding the version of it where we weren't tied down to a time and day, like schedule locked in, because then if I felt I wasn't feeling well the day before, I would then start to mentally panic without telling anyone, knowing that I'm not going to feel well for this tomorrow, so I'm going to have to prepare. I can't do X, Y, and Z today because we need to do this tomorrow, because it had a locked in time. So similar to what you said as well, if you can find things to do that are scheduled, but you're not sort of locked in, that you can add a night or change things around, is probably a really good tip to still get to experience the scheduled activities that you would like.
Definitely. And I think also, it's so hard because we all do it, but just try as much as you can to let go of that guilt, because it's not your fault. Mm-hmm. It's not anybody's fault. It's if we have medical conditions that make us feel ill on holiday, that's no fault of our own. Yeah. And often these things happen actually when you stop and when you relax. Mm-hmm. Your body goes, oh, yeah, I've been waiting for you to relax because actually I'm not very well. but you know, it isn't anybody's fault, and nobody's blaming anybody, you know. So I think a lot of that guilt and a lot of that pressure is just internalized.
Yeah.
We feel like this because we think that other people are going to be disappointed, or we think that it's our fault that we can't go on this trip, but actually that's not true. You know, it's our brains telling us things that aren't actually true.
Yeah, and I think a big thing, like you even pointed out as well at an earlier point, was that for a lot of people, we assume because we have the chronic illness or disability that we're the only people that end up sort of maneuvering a trip around or having sort of bad trip days, where actually a lot of my healthy, able-bodied friends, or even my family who is healthy and non-disabled as well, a lot of times their aspects of their vacations are way worse than mine, because theirs can go south a lot faster than mine, and they have no health issues walking into their vacations in comparison to mine.
Exactly. I guess that's the benefit of planning everything, is that you know, when things go wrong, we've usually got a plan. We've usually got a backup plan. And actually, if you're a non-disabled person that isn't used to having to plan your life like a military operation, then when things go wrong, that can be even more difficult, I guess. Because
you're like, I don't know how to fix this. I wasn't prepared. Yeah. And kind of to end note on this trip, I wanted to ask you sort of in an ideal world setting, from your work as a travel writer as well as working with AccessAble, what would be sort of the one thing you would wish that a lot of holiday destinations, whether that's hotels, venues, resorts, what would you wish that they would all start to move forward towards to become more accessible and inclusive for people having guests that are chronically ill or disabled?
I love this question. I get asked it a lot, and my answer is always the same. And hopefully one day my answer will be different because this will be done. But my answer is always information. Mm-hmm. Information. You know, the more that we as disabled people, as people with chronic illnesses, know about accessibility, about accommodations, whatever, the more we can do. Information is power. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I want to be able to make my own decision about whether or not your hotel, your tourist attraction is accessible to me. Yeah. I don't want you telling me that your venue is or isn't accessible to me, because actually that's not your decision to make, and you don't know what my needs are. Yeah. What I want is for you to provide enough detailed, accurate information so that I can make that decision myself. And, you know, our users, AccessAble users, tell us, and I'll quote this, if they don't know, then they don't go. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's going back to that statistic earlier of 76 people won't visit a venue that doesn't have access to information. If I don't know, I won't go. And that's just huge, to be missing out on that as a business. Yeah. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that you should all adapt and put ramps in and put hearing lips in and all the rest of it. I think you should, but that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is work with an expert organisation like AccessAble, provide detailed information about your accessibility, whatever that may be, because you will be accessible to someone. Yeah. You know, you might not be accessible to me, but it might be accessible to you. Yeah. And, you know, I don't want to be excluded, but if it means that you get to find a venue that's accessible to you, then that's great. If you discover somewhere new that you didn't know before by just going online and clicking a button and not having to make 10 phone calls or send your family in advance to see if you can get through the door, then, you know, how empowering is that?
Yeah, I love that you said that this actually is, it's a big element of allyship in a way, that it's not only allowing the chronic illness and disability community, which is quite large, which many people statistically don't even realize. I think even last year we had that stat brought up that it's over 1/7 of the world's population would have a chronic illness or disability, and that's a whole market of people who would love to engage in tourism in a much bigger way. And like you said, to have that statistic of that percentage of people who then just will not engage in any sort of hotel or venue or restaurant or service, that opening that door a little bit, you're getting some more customers coming in. So it's a win for both people to be able to have some information, even just taking one. If you can't open all of the information, like you said, make everything accessible to everyone, at least if you were able to make some adjustments so there's accessibility for a good percentage of the population, you're having such a larger population of people who can experience what they're able to provide. So I love how you phrased that as well.
And I think, if you think about making adaptations versus providing information, the amount of work that is involved in making your venue accessible, particularly if it's an old venue, the amount of work and the amount of cost is huge. And why would you do all that and then not tell people about it? With my marketing head on, I'm going, well, yes, there is the cost associated in working with organisations like AccessAble. There are also methods that you can do yourself to get your information out there, but comparatively, it's a really low cost, and it's like opening a new hotel and not telling anybody about it.
Yeah,
like that just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, in this world that we live in, and we have the internet, we have social media, we have all these powerful tools, and they have the power to really change life and open up the world for disabled people. We just need to get businesses on board.
Yeah, I love it. Oh man, let's just end it on that empowering note. I'm not asking any more questions, Carrie, and we're ending on that one. I want to thank you so much for being our guest on this episode. It's been so fun to get your insight as well, from a travel writer to working with AccessAble, and really getting to see sort of all the different multifaceted opinions and points of view when it comes to traveling and going on holiday. It's something I've been really excited to get to chat with you on, and I know so many of our listeners and viewers at InvisiYouth are going to really love getting to hear your insight. And what I know they're going to love is being able to connect with you more and connect with AccessAble more. So let all of our listeners and viewers know where they can find you on social media and the internet, your blog, as well as where they can find AccessAble. And I know from Twitter you also have 2 sets of Twitter accounts as well. So where can everyone find you?
Absolutely, yeah. So first of all, so you can find AccessAble. The website is accessable.co.uk. The app called AccessAble is free to download on iOS and Android. And you can find us at AccessAble UK, pretty much all the socials. And then for myself, my blog is Carrie-Ann and all of my social channels are linked to from my blog site. You can also sign up and subscribe there, so you'll get updates on my latest blog posts before anybody else if you subscribe to my mailing list.
Yes, please. And we're going to have all of the links to AccessAble and to Carrie-Ann's blog and her social media linked below. So definitely give her a follow, subscribe to her blog. I thoroughly love reading all of her posts, and her photos are amazing that go attached with it. So you get a travel blog visually and written as well. So it's a win in both ways. So, and like always with InvisiYouth chat sessions, you can find InvisiYouth Charity on our website, InvisiYouthCharity.com, on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at InvisiYouth, and you can subscribe to the InvisiYouth chat sessions on our YouTube channel or on all of our audio podcast networks, which are obviously all linked below as well. And so I want to, again, thank you so much for Carrie-Ann for being on the show. We're so excited to start off season 3 with you. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I've absolutely loved it.
Thank you so much, and we will get to speak with all of you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.